Welcome to Books That Matter, People Who Matter, the program dedicated to promoting reading among all segments of the viewing audience. We are thankful to the Most High for blessing us with the opportunity to be with you and you to be with us, and remind you to read for yourself, read to a senior citizen, an elder, and of course take time with your children, your grandchildren, read something within, and this is Black History Year for me, 2019, and we would remind you to start the history of your family with your children and your grandchildren. Start with yourself, and then branch out to books such as J. Rogers' books of World's Great Men of Color, From Superman to Man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's books, and a host of others based on your choice. Our guest today is a young man we've had on our show before, Brother Elijah Shabazz Bah. And our subject, our lead-in subject is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the maker of leaders. Brother Elijah, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me again.
When you hear leaders and you hear the title of the show, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the maker of leaders, what comes to your mind?
Well, what comes to my mind is the bankruptcy in the world of leadership today. When you look at the type of president that you have in the White House and how morally corrupt he is. And, you know, you have to think, okay, this is a grown man, but just the fact that he made it to that high position of power without any true leadership training, without any true moral principles. I mean, the fact that he just lies like it's water coming out of a faucet shows you the level of moral bankruptcy, not just of the person, but of the people who elected him, the people that's cheering for him, the people that's rooting for him. The fact that they would use such a character as a standard for leadership. So when you look at what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has to offer to the black man and really for humanity, if they will follow his blueprint, is phenomenal. Because you have institutions that people will pay $30,000, $40,000, $100,000 to train their children up, but they don't produce products like Malcolm X. They don't produce products like Muhammad Ali. They don't produce products like his son, Warfdeen Muhammad. They don't produce products like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. They don't produce these type of products. In fact, the products they produce follow the students of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So, I mean, you think about that. You know, so they go to these institutions, but it doesn't give them the necessary guidance and wherewithal to become the type of leaders that will galvanize, you know, masses of people.
Within the Nation of Islam, you will find folks with college degrees, folks with no degrees, folks that have come out of the school of hard knocks on the street, folks who have come out of the school of 20 hard knocks from prison.
That's right.
And 50 hard knocks from drug addiction.
That's right.
But you can't tell who's been into what way of life.
That's right.
And they might be holding leadership position, but even if they're not in a leadership position within the mosque, they're doing something of substance outside your experience.
And that is correct. It's like the Hajj ritual. You know, the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is like the Hajj ritual in the truest sense. Because in the Hajj ritual, everybody gets in the state of ihram. They all wear the same white garb. So whether you're a king, whether you're a ruler, no matter what your status is in society, you put on that garb, and when you're walking around the Kaaba, we're all equal. We're all one. You can't tell who's the king. You can't tell who's the slave. You don't know. They're all equal. When you come into the Nation of Islam, we all throw on our suit and bow tie. We all go out there with the Final Call newspaper. We all do what's called the dawah work. We call it fishing, going after the people. We all give the charity. We all give the zakat. So you look at these brothers, you don't know, man, this brother is a doctor. This brother is an engineer.
Right.
This brother is a business owner. This brother may even be a millionaire. This brother may be straight out of prison. You may assume from watching the Malcolm X movie that, that's, all brothers in the nation come from prison. But no, not in this generation. You got, my nephews just became FOI. So their third generation. Their grandfather was FOI. Their father's FOI. Their FOI. Their mother's MGT. Their FOI. Their daughter's MGT. So you have third generation. In the second generation, they went to college. The third generation goes to college. And so you have a lot of the professional class. You have members of the Nation of Islam. We have a sister in Westchester, Sister Nichelle. She's a judge. You have a brother in Michigan. He lives in my great-uncle town. I can't name it right now. FOI, he's a mayor. So you have mayors, you have judges, you have people on all different levels and people straight from the street. But if you look at us when we're in ranks, when we're sitting in the mosque or we're holding post, you will not know the difference in our status.
People hear the term leaders. What is the ingredients from your standpoint?
Well, what makes a leader is first, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, a thorough knowledge of self. A thorough knowledge of self. If you're not sure of yourself, nobody's going to be sure of you. So the first thing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has to instill in you is that self-knowledge, which gives you self-love and self-confidence. And what he takes out of you, what he says like in the message to the black man, he said that one of the reasons that they hate Islam, because Islam removes fear from the black man. And and they take that as a threat, like, we're going to go on some war, some jihad. But no, it takes the fear of success out of you. And that's what was manifested in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It takes the fear of not speaking out against the injustices in society. So when you look at Brother Malcolm and you look at Minister Farrakhan, no matter what the media says about them, how they attack them and lambaste them and, and try to get them to be politically correct and toe the line, no, they're going to burn you with the hard truth. And it's, they're going to show you that mirror to make you look at yourself and either look at the greatness of yourself as a black man and woman in America, or look at the weakness of yourself and the wickedness of yourself as a white racist in America and a co-oppressor of the people. So that type of bold, uncompromising leadership is produced through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and it has affected those outside of the Nation of Islam, where even Barack Obama says his hero is Malcolm X. Well, if Malcolm X wasn't made and shaped by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, there would be no hero for young Barack Obama. And many, even in the political class, their hero is, Malcolm and even Minister Farrakhan, but they won't admit it. They won't admit it. But they will go into the political arena and they'll take that type of bold, uncompromising stance. You look at our sister Tamika Mallory and how they try to pressure her to denounce the minister when she's been influenced by the minister since she was a young girl. So you see that sister, leading the masses and taking that type of bold stance through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his student, Minister Farrakhan. So there's something in these teachings that is an ingredient to producing that type of strong moral character that makes for a great, bold leader.
Discipline is a key.
Yes.
And your experience in working with other young men and developing young men, talk about that aspect of your life.
Well, usually when we think of discipline, we think of punishment. Especially when it comes to children, we tend to think that, you have to take this belt off, you have to spank them, and sometimes that may be necessary. But in my growth and maturity, I found that you really don't have to use any object to discipline a child. you can make a child love discipline. Even the youngest child. You know, when I get a young child in my class, he might be 3 or 5 years old, and he starts crying. So I say to him, oh, you need your bottle? You need some Pampers? And he's like, no, I'm 5 years old. So just by, making him see himself, he's like, no, I'm going to act like a big boy. I don't need no bottle. I don't need no Pampers. You see? So just getting them to love, to be a young boy that's disciplined, you don't have to put the belt on them, because they're going to want to fit into that, what I call positive peer pressure society. Positive peer pressure society, where you are rewarded based on the good you do, where you are rewarded based on the progressive moves that you make, where you're rewarded when you go out and you sell the paper, you do something for yourself, you're making your own money, you see? So now the shine is on you, because you're an entrepreneur. You're not a beggar. You're not somebody just going out there, waiting for somebody to hand out and look out for you. Let me share a personal story. When I was a teenager coming up, because, my father, was in the nation. My mother was in the nation. Yes. And, my earliest experience is seeing my mother in the MGT uniform, and my father, he would sit around with us at a very young age and read the Muhammad Speaks to us, in his suit, in his straight ties, bow tie, this clean-cut image. And, so one time I got lost out there in the streets, and, and I started doing what street boys do, stupid stuff, And so my father told me, after I got in trouble with the law, with a friend of mine, he robbed somebody. I was present. He did the robbing, but I was present. So me being present makes me, an accessory to the crime. And I was lucky because Judge Bruce Wright was sitting on a juvenile court, and they called him Cut 'em Loose Bruce. So I got a second chance. So when my father found out I was involved in this stupid stuff, he came, he gave me a beating, not with a belt. He just, tapped me up with his hands, and then he spoke to me. He said, "Fool, you're robbing people as poor as yourself. You're robbing people as poor as yourself. If you go out there and hustle in a right manner, you'll make more money than you do robbing people as poor as yourself." And when he said that to me, it wasn't the beating that got me right. It was the knowledge from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that got me right. And I said, he's correct. Being a stick-up kid is really foolish. You walk around all day looking for somebody to rob, and then when you finally catch them, they only got $2 in their pocket. That's 8 hours. Sometimes you spend looking for the right person to Vic, as they say, to rob. But if back then we were able to go to the supermarket and pack bags, and in 1 hour I'll make $5. I'm running around all day looking for somebody to stick up and making $2 and risking my freedom on top of that.
Exactly.
So this is the stupidity. So the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives you common sense. Do for self. Don't wait for others to give you a handout. The reason why people rob because they rather take from somebody else than to get it for themselves. So once that mentality changed, I didn't need to go out and rob nobody no more. I was making so much money, as Allah is my witness. The last time my mother bought me clothes was probably when I was like 12 years old. That's the last time my parents bought me clothes. Ever since then, I was buying my own clothes. I was purchasing my own products with the do-for-self mentality taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I took the burden off my parents because we had a big family. Feeding and clothing all of us. I was able to feed myself. I was able to clothe myself since I was like 13 years old. So this is the type of experience and discipline I put into the young men that I train. And they're proud. When they go out and make their own money, and they come back and they got money in their pocket, They're proud of that.
And that's, you some people are awake and a lot of people aren't awake.
Yeah.
So when you see a young boy with a paper in his hand,
Yeah.
and he's offering it to you,
Yeah.
and you stick your nose up in the air and you keep on going, you're
Right.
bypassing the opportunity to take part in educating that individual into doing something for self. And you miss the opportunity for an act of good. Talk about we have an image in back of us with these young brothers in ranks, and you take them through drill. You've been able to take some young people through drill. Now they're drill masters. Talk
Yes.
about that real quick for us.
Well, that process is another thing. Our young people, like for instance with me, when I got lost in the street, when, I thank Allah so much for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan rebuilding the Nation of Islam under the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Because now I was involved in a brotherhood. Again, that positive peer pressure. And now I had activity. So when you see these young brothers doing the drill, the fact that they're leaving their neighborhood, do you know some of our young men, they never leave their neighborhood. It's all about their block. I'm going to hold my block down. This is how they talk about hold my block down. Yeah, exactly. And they don't own nothing, not a single brick on the block. But I'm holding it down. And they're ready to kill somebody for walking through their block that they don't own. So, so you see these young men, behind me, first thing we do, we take them, out of the neighborhood. If they're from the Bronx, they're from Brooklyn, they're from Queens, they all converge on Harlem. You see? And they go out, they get that experience. But then when they get into the drill team, the discipline, which is an exercise in discipline, in Arabic they call it sabor. So, Allah says in the Quran, successful are the patient. Drill, the military style drill that you see them doing is an exercise in patience. That's a part of their faith. That's a part of their Islam. It's one thing to tell somebody you should be patient. It's another thing to train them in the way of patience. And that's why, when it says by the time, surely man is at loss, except those who believe and do good and exhort one another to truth and exhort one another to patience. When you're training somebody in the act of patience, you're exhorting them to be patient. Not just saying it to them, exhorting them. You see? And you're shaping them in that way. So they travel. We go to Chicago for our national convention to compete in against drill teams across the country. So now not only they're leaving their block going to Harlem, they're going to different cities. The first time I ever been on a plane was with the Nation of Islam, going into Chicago for Savings Day. So this broadens their mind, because traveling broadens your mind. Even if you're just traveling in the U.S., you're going to a different city and you're participating in something, before thousands of people. So you're a rock star doing something positive. You see? Then we take them all around the city. We drill at the Harlem State Office Building. We go into different communities in Queens. And last summer, we went to the African American Parade in Philadelphia and drilled with, I forgot this great musician, but he sponsored it down there in Philly. You know him. I can't think of his name now. But and the news went all around the country. So you imagine what type of impact and self-esteem this gives a young man when he's involved in activity where he's shining, he's a star, and he's doing something positive.
And what happens, based on the little I've seen, is that when they do their drill in public, outside of the mosque setting, the people go crazy.
Yes.
Adults and children.
Yes.
The children want to join in.
Oh, no, they do join in. That's the beauty of it. When we go out, once we demonstrate, I usually ask the young children in the audience, male, female, I say, do you think you could do the same thing? And they say, sure. They are so excited to get involved. One situation, this was like about 10 years ago. We went out to Long Island, and and it was a junior middle school. So we went there, and this school was very unruly. They don't listen to the teachers, they don't listen to the principal, they don't listen to their parents, and they were having a big problem with them. I go with like 5 junior FOI. And this is a whole gymnasium. You know, the bleachers are filled with young people. So we spoke to them and, you know, they listened for a little bit, but we couldn't keep their attention. So I said, brothers fall in. We did the drill, right? So when they saw the brothers drill, I asked them, and this is the first time I experienced something like this. It was one of the most incredible experiences in my life. And I have photos from this day. I asked them, I said, how many of y'all think y'all could do this? And they raised their hand. I said, who would like to join, Brother Leroy? You know the type of bleachers that you have to walk upstairs and there's a fence? They didn't come down the stairs to get involved. They jumped over the fence, down into the you know, where the basketball court was, and lined up. We had lines from one end of the basketball court to the other. 4 or 5 ranks of young men standing in ranks, listening to our commands. And right then and there, my students became leaders.
Wow.
Because they were training the young people. And just to show you that our young people want discipline. They want it. I didn't have to beat them to get them in line. I didn't have to, you know, scream at them to get them in line or threaten them or bully them into getting in line. Just by the positive example, it brought it out of them. Yeah, that's what I've been looking for. I've been looking for something positive but strong. You see, beautiful. Our young men are attracted to strength.
That's right.
But in a positive direction. And I actually got in trouble, I didn't mean to, because when I dismissed them,
they left
the school. It's like, oh, class is over. I didn't mean to do that. You know, the principal called me. He's like, oh, you're not supposed to. So we literally took over the school. Just with the drill, we took over the school.
5
Just
FOI,
five junior FOI.
And one adult.
One adult. And this was like literally probably about 100 or so students.
Man.
You know, so that just goes to show you that yes, our youth want discipline, but they need the right message. And the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has proven intergenerationally to be the right message.
One of the ingredients of leadership or making leaders is the quality of searching for knowledge, looking and seeking, self-training, self-education.
Yes.
And you've been at the forefront of that. And you're working on a project right now.
Yes, yes. Now that's a different topic. So, if you will.
But it is a pursuit.
Yes.
Well, before we even talk about that, we may not even be able to talk about that in this segment.
Right.
But talk about how your involvement in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has led you further and further and further into validating what you've learned and expanding on that.
Okay. So, I mean, the current project I'm working on is a translation work. But it goes back to the discipline. You see, I taught myself Arabic. How did I teach myself Arabic? Discipline. There are people that go to college, that take this in college, and they're not as proficient in Arabic as I am. And I've met people that they're like, you know, because their methodology, the way they teach in college, it's very confusing for a lot of people. So they pay that money, they take the course in Arabic, and at the end of the course, they still don't know. The translation work I'm doing is in the French language. I taught myself French. You see, but, well, and again, I know people who take French in school and they just lose it.
Exactly.
Well, what's the difference? The methodology. It's the methodology I got from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. One is the discipline. So when somebody told me, you could tell anybody this, but if they don't have the discipline to implement it, it's not going to happen. He said, if you just take 15 minutes in the morning, this is my first Arabic teacher, Brother Solomon Mars, you know, when he just taught me basically 9 letters of the alphabet, and he left. He just disappeared. About 9, 10 letters of the alphabet. He was like, you got it from here. No, because he saw that in me. I was learning at such a rapid pace. He was like, and you know what's deep? He said to me, he said, you're going to be the teacher to the community because he said, it's like basically you don't need me no more. And he didn't even get me through the whole alphabet. But he saw the level of dedication I had to teaching myself. So what he told me is just simply this: 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, 15 minutes in the evening. I followed that pattern. And I even gave myself more time. And I had the discipline to follow that pattern. In 9 months, I was able to read the Quran from cover to cover in Arabic. So, and if you think about what Master Farad Muhammad said, the teacher of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said if a man speaks only 400 words well, he knows that language basically. So knowing a new language, you basically need to learn 400 words in that language, which is, if you break it down, that's like 1 word a day, 2 words a day in a year. And at the end of the year, you could be proficient in that language, but it's just a matter of discipline. So this is how the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad will make you a leader and make you a scholar. If you just take those same principles of discipline, and this is what my students do, no matter what field they go into. If they go into architecture, they go into medicine, they go into martial arts, whatever field they go into, that same discipline they learn as a GFOI, they take it there and they excel. They go to the top, because that's where it's all about, the basic ingredients of discipline. And that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives you.
Awesome. The other cities, we're talking about Harlem primarily, but the making of leaders is evident in other cities.
Of course. Wherever the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is, there's going to be leaders springing up out of there, powerhouses that are springing up.
Inside the nation and outside. They come
Inside,
in,
yes.
They get the teachings, and they go out and they start creating.
Yes. There are some brothers that even went back to church. And they're they're leaders in the church, they're pastors, because the organizational skills you get in the Nation of Islam, you go back into the church with it, you're on a whole another level. It's
a theological seminary. Seminary. The thing is, I'm laughing because you run into these brothers, and some you knew,
right?
And they got a collar on.
Right.
I'm always saying to myself, I know that you in the church, I know they ain't cooking no pork in there.
Right.
Because if they are, then you actually operate against yourself. In terms of summing up on this part 1,